University, Mohsen Saleh, and from Washington, Yemeni freelance journalist Munir Al-Mawari. Thank you all for joining me here for the program. Well, I'd like to start off from London itself. Now, there are reports that Saleh will be treated in Saudi Arabia for neck and chest wounds. Do you think that he will return to Yemen? Mr. Moustafa.
I very doubt so. If he is in Saudi Arabia, I think it is a good thing that he's out of Yemen, because that's what was requested from him in previous agreements, which he reneged on it. So I think it's a very good thing for Yemen, particularly the country seems to be sliding into civil war, and the army and the police withdrawn from some big towns like Sana'a, so I feel the tribes are really getting at each other, and he was too late to take such a decision, and he seemed to me injured badly to need treatment, or he might be injured badly politically too, that he has to flee the country.
Okay, can I turn to Beirut, and I want to talk to Professor Saleh. Now, some analysts are speculating that this exit is a way that Saleh can leave and save face. What's your take on that? Professor Saleh, did you hear me? Okay, we seem to have a problem with the sound. Let me ask that same question from Washington. Mr. Al-Mawari, what's your take on that, that some analysts are speculating that this is actually a way for Saleh to have an exit to save face? What's your take on it? Washington? Okay, we seem to be having problems. Let me go back to London and Mr. Moustafa. Your take on that, sir. Do you think that all of this, there are some analysts that are saying that this is just for Saleh to save face. What's your take on it?
Well, my take on it, that he is badly damaged, and he is coming to reality that he is not fit to rule or to stay in the country under any circumstances, either in power as a president or just go and stay with his tribes as a citizen. But I think he's taken the right decision now, and probably he's been advised to do so. And I think Yemen is really turning into a very dangerous point. The situation is fluid. As you could see, nationals, European nationals, UK nationals have been advised to leave the country now. And I think Yemen, as we have to remember, 1962, for example, there was a civil war. It's very difficult to stick the country together, and actually was breaking down into north and south. And the possibility of breaking up is not remote at all. Take into account the tribal nature of the country, the presence of Al-Qaeda and hard Islamist group in the country, and there's the corruption too, which is making things difficult. And as well, we have to take into account people, particularly in power, using huge amounts of khat, which is amphetamine-like substance, which make people very defiant and difficult to see real world. And I think that's what happened in many members' minds of the government.
Okay, well, let me turn to Lafayette, Louisiana, and get our next guest in on this, Mr. Halawi. What they're saying now, there are some that are saying, not sure exactly who is behind this attack that actually caused the damage to the palace, killed several people, and obviously have injured Saleh. Who do you think is likely to have been behind this attack? Whereas the tribes so far are denying that they are behind these attacks.
Well, number one, let me just answer the first question you asked the guest before. Now, I don't know who's behind it, and you can't really start to speculate on who actually did this. It could be anyone. But that's not what's important. What is really important is I really do believe that this is probably the way for Saleh to save face, and I don't really believe that he will be coming back, because if this was not a safe face for Saleh, they probably would have kept this secret, and they probably would have treated him in Yemen. But I really do believe this was the way to finish off that situation. Now, as far as like who was behind it, it has to be someone who can actually accomplish this, and it has to be somebody with the means to do this. So, you know, we don't know if this was like a military coup against Saleh or not. We don't know if it's Al-Ahmar, but there are so many tribes and so many people who will have a reason to do this. But regardless of who really was behind it, I really believe this was the way for Yemen to get out of the mess they are in and finish at least the Saleh era. I do believe this is the end of the Saleh era in Yemen.
Okay, now, you know, there's some that say not important exactly who was behind the attack, but others are saying because there's a possibility now that a civil war could break out in Yemen. I want to look at that possibility, Mr. Moustafa. What's your take on it right now as we stand, now that Saleh has left the country? What's the most likely scenario at this point?
The most likely scenario is a lot of tribe leaders will try to fill the vacuum, and of course there will be a lot of infighting. As we know, Yemen has not really been a stable country at all, and almost everybody is armed. There is three weapons for every citizen in Yemen, so they will arm it to the teeth. And actually, some of them, some of the tribes have heavy arms as well. What is hoped is that the army will take a control of the situation, like what happened in Egypt. I mean, I just came from Egypt a couple of days ago after meeting the authorities in Egypt, and I find the army have done a very good job in Egypt, and I hope they can take a leaf from what happened in Egypt and really create some form of stability. And I must say the challenges are great in Yemen, very great, more than Egypt or Tunisia. And I hope there will be some support for Yemen from outside the world if the army have some form of central command to control the country and pull it together.
Okay, going back to Beirut and getting Professor Saleh in on this discussion. Now, Professor Saleh, there are other reports that a one-week truce has now been put in place in Yemen, negotiated by Saudi King Abdullah between the government and the tribes. I want to look at the role overall of Saudi Arabia in Yemen, because basically Riyadh has supported not only Saleh, but also the tribes. What exactly does this mean in general?
Well, of course, I was going to ask the same question about in whose interest this attack on the presidential palace. And I guess one of the main figures of this strife in Yemen is Ali Al-Ahmar, the leader of the battalion, 1st Battalion in the ground. And he could have done such thing because he wants to get rid of Ali Abdullah Saleh, backed by Saudi Arabia, backed by the United States and the Westerners, and I guess they want to finish this issue, this mediation or this initiatives, which has no fortune to succeed. They want to do such thing in order to get rid of Ali Abdullah Saleh. Now, the situation will not go into their interest, because now the national strife in Yemen, I guess, will lead to more blood shed in Yemen, and that will complicate the issue for the United States and the Saudis. And I guess the Americans and the Saudis are creating their enemies in Yemen because of their behavior, backing Ali Abdullah Saleh for more than 30 years, causing a lot of poverty and illiteracy, and depriving this country from its its independence and from its sources and resources. And I guess now the Yemenis, I guess, should go back to unite against the Saudis and against the United States in order to create or to reunite their efforts against their real enemies. And now if they want to go for civil war into tribal strife or tribal battles, I guess they won't benefit anything. And I guess the ground is ready for a united Yemen to create a new independence after Ali Abdullah Saleh, and I guess now it's his end. Now he is in Saudi Arabia, he is getting medical care in Saudi Arabia like Ali, Zayn bin Ali, and probably Hosni Mubarak would go to Saudi Arabia. All these failures in the policies backed by the United States, and I guess they will collect themselves in Jeddah or in Riyadh.
Well, what about the role in general, Professor Saleh, the role in general of Saudi Arabia in this? Of course, I know that Saudi Arabia obviously is playing a big role, and it seems that all these dictators are ending up there. But besides that, their direct role in the situation in Yemen itself.